spent
were you?
I spent Sunday here too. So, yeah.
Yeah, once in a while, work and council all add up at the same time.
Yeah. Okay, we are live on YouTube. I'll let everybody know that. And we're streaming. Are we ready to go, Corporate Officer?
I have quorum, so yes.
Okay, thank you. We have quorum. Yes, thank you. Okay, well, welcome everybody to the regular meeting of council for November 2, 2021, being held electronically. And we are honored again tonight to gather on the unceded territory of Squamish Nation. We do have an amended agenda. Does everybody have a copy of that? This reflects the decisions made this afternoon by council. So I will ask then for a motion to approve the agenda. Yeah, Councillor Kroll, Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. And then the adoption of the minutes of October 19, 2021. Motion to adopt the minutes. Councillor Kroll, Councillor D'Andrade again, thank you. Any discussion of the minutes before we adopt them? All in favor? Thank you. Adopted. Any business arising, council, from those minutes? Okay, seeing none, we have one delegation tonight, Mr. Herman Ziltner and Colleen Clark, the Reed Road Forest Working Group of the Alpenstone Community Association. So I'd invite them to come forward. I believe they have a PowerPoint presentation for us.
I'm moving them over now, Mayor Beamish.
Thank you.
Okay. So I hope you can,
Mr. Ziltner, hope we could hear
I
you.
hope you can hear me. I'm somewhat a bit, as always, challenged with these things. So
Yeah, I understand it well.
okay, here, start my video.
Okay.
All right, now we're here.
We see you, yes.
Good, okay.
And Colleen Clark, yes, thank you. Welcome, both of you. And you have a presentation for us tonight.
Indeed, we have. So I'll do PowerPoint, and I do this. I think I have to go and share my screen, which is here. Okay, and no.
Okay, you're ahead of me on this. I'm having somebody else do this for me tomorrow.
It's always a bit challenging. I have to admit that now I should find my full presentation. So can you see this now?
We can see you now. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Council, for giving us the opportunity to have a request for a letter of support. So our issue is Reed Road Forest, which many of you will be familiar with. So it's at your doorstep. It's a 120-acre forest on the Mount Elphinstone. It has regenerated naturally after fire in 1906. It is part of the Gibsons aquifer, and it was actually designed a watershed reserve in 1940. Now, it's climate change, the pressures of development, that worsening long-standing problems with overland flooding, washouts, and of course, we all remember the stage 4 water emergency we had that basically gives us the other side of the coin, a drought and threats to our water supply. And in our view, it's essential we maintain a healthy forest ecosystem to reduce flooding as well as save our water supply. The other point I want to make here is that Reed Road Forest is one of the few remaining emerging old growth forests. It's easy accessible, and it's situated at the urban forest interface. And that alone makes it a unique forest that should never have been cut. It's always been popular. We just live right below the forest, and we noted a significant increase of people visiting the forest. The forest has been outside the BC timber sales supply until at least 2010. As you can see here on this map here, the red rectangle is just below the boundary of BCDS. In 2013, I believe, the forest was incorporated into the BCTS wood supply. And amazingly, this was done without any consultation with government, local government. And we residents only noted once we found the BCTS marking tapes on the trees. Historically, there has always been a very strong support of turning this into forest. So this goes back into park. This goes back to 2008 community plan. The community association, the Elphinstone Community Association, has always strongly supported the forest and opposed logging, and of course all the local residents as well. So our aim is to maintain the forest in its present state. Recently, a delegation of us went to the Honorable Nicholas Simmons, our Minister for Social Development, Poverty Reduction, and MLA. And we asked him to write to his colleague, the Honorable Catherine Conroy, Minister of Forests and Lands, Natural Resources Operations, and asked the Minister for withdrawal of the land of District Lot 1313, Reed Road Forest, from BCTS timber supply for conservation purposes. I want to add the SRD has always submitted such requests to the Ministry of Forest in previous years. What do we want to do with the forest? Basically maintain it in its present state, use it as an educational forest, develop the trails more, and the Elphinstone Community Association as an umbrella organization in partnership with First Nations, environmental and recreational groups, as well as educational groups. Why am I coming to the town of Gibsons, you may ask, is I think we share a similar interest in preserving this forest. So this is actually from your town website, the 2013 Waterline report that shows that Reed Road Forest is just off the map here, is basically at the head of the confirmed Gibsons aquifer that extends from the foot of Mount Elphinstone, where DL 1313 is, down to the harbor. And in this report, it's highlighted that it's estimated over half of the water in the aquifer comes from the Mount Elphinstone area. Another important fact is that the water moves quite quickly. So it's actually a river of water and about 400 meters a year. So what's happening in the forest here will be noted in town in less than 10 years. So our request to the town is a simple one. We're asking you to write a letter of support to the Honorable Catherine Conroy to support our request for withdrawal of the land of DL 1313 from BCTS timber supply. Now, I have one more slide here that goes in the same direction. And this is the proposed cut block TA 0519. And I actually sent the town and council emails when I sent it to BCTS for the last 2 years when it was proposed first by BCTS as well. And this cut block here is the same as the L1313. It really threatens the water supply. It is also seriously increasing risk of flooding. A point here is that the creeks down on the map here are all wrong. We live right down here. So I can tell you the red lines are where the correct creek is. There is actually an illegal diversion of the creek in here. And this means that half the water up here will all come down at this corner through Russell Road that has been flooded in the past. And a faster runoff of water will basically mean there is less time for recharge of the aquifer that's supposed to sit here as well. So that is something to be kept in mind as well. So I'll thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation. I'm happy to take questions. So
Thank you. Thank you, Herman. Would you mind stop sharing your screen now then, please?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
working on
thank you.
this again. I'm,
Yeah.
you know, sort of,
Yeah.
I'm trying to go into Zoom here.
Yeah.
No,
Oh, right. That's a nice picture.
yeah, I know that's up in up north. So where is it?
Yeah.
No, it's not, no. What is he doing here?
There we
Okay,
are.
here.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so have I stopped sharing the screen?
Yeah, well, we see you now, and you stop sharing, and
Okay, good.
yeah, thank
All
you.
right.
Yeah, and Colleen, do you have anything you wish to add?
You're on mute, Colleen.
No, I'm not.
There you go. Yeah, thank you.
I think it's imperative that people understand how important it is that this forest is providing the water for us at a reasonable rate. There is, at the end of Mountain Road, which is just above me, somebody is building a home, and they had infill brought in, and it was clay. And the clay, with the recent rainstorm that we had, washed down into the property below. The volume of water, even without logging, is astronomical here. And I think it's imperative that something be done as soon as possible. We've been on this for 8 years. And BC Timber Sales seems to do what they want to do. They're not listening at all. So we've tried addressing with the Ministry of Forests, but unfortunately, the Ministry of Forests has turned it over to BC Timber Sales. That has to stop, because this is people's homes, their properties, their water supply, everything. And I think we're at the climate change. We're at the crux of the creek right now. This is it. This is the final stand. And that's all I have to say, because I see the flooding. I see the road washouts. I saw it from 2 weeks ago or last week, whenever we had that big storm. The water was flowing down our roads. The creeks were overflowing onto the highway all around us. And that's with our trees. So this is not something to say, well, we'll put it off till next month, next year, whatever. It has to be addressed now. Yeah. Right now. It's sad to watch this.
Yeah, we understand your concern on this. Now, you'll be presenting this again tomorrow morning to our workshop. I appreciate that. There will be a different audience there. And so that I do have commitments from Ministry of Forests and Highways and Ministry of Environment to be present tomorrow, as well as a number of other people, so that we'll have a chance to talk with them as well. And in that broader sense, because that is also a concern that the town of Gibsons shares with you in terms of what happens in the watershed and its impact on all of us. And we're very concerned about that. Director McMahon is in the audience. I wonder if Rebecca, if she wants to have add anything to the conversation.
I'm moving her over in case she wishes to speak. If not,
Thank
she
you.
can just
Thank
let you know.
Director McMahon, there you are. Yes, welcome. Thank you.
Yes, well, it's hard to say much more after Herman has done such a good job. I guess what I would just say is now is the time for Team Sunshine Coast to work together. And one of our strategic goals at the SCRD is advocacy with senior government. And that's what we need to be doing, because our hands are tied unless we can get movement from the provincial ministries. So thank you very much.
Herman and Colleen, thank you. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. No, it's not our practice to pass any resolutions based upon a delegation, but your request is not lost on us. And we will be following up with you on that. And hopefully we'll have another conversation tomorrow and a good one. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you. Okay, we'll go down to the next item on our agenda. And I just want to say how much I appreciate that presentation. I had seen that before, and that's why I'd asked them to come and present to council, so council could get a sense of the urgency of that issue, and in part to kind of set a tone for us for our conversations that we're going to have tomorrow as well. So that was important. So next item is on the agenda is inquiries, and invite anybody to come forward who has questions related to the agenda and the items that are on the agenda for council's consideration tonight?
Ms. Mayor Beamish, I'm moving Judith Bonkoff over.
Thank you.
Well, I'm trying to move Judith Bonkoff over.
Yeah, I see her.
Okay, I'm here.
Yes, welcome.
All right. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I did attend the COW meeting this afternoon, but I must admit that I kind of forgot and sort of joined when you'd already been partly through the CAC policy. And I appreciate how hard this is for everybody to come up with, to vote on this policy and all the different issues. I understand you're going to vote on it tonight, and I see some glaring flaws, and I know that different councillors have pointed these out, and I would like them addressed, but I know you have struggled with this policy a long time. I think there's some flaws in the way it was written. But that being said, I think the lift, the view properties, not just the lower Gibsons, I'm talking view. I think we're leaving money on the table. And also to negotiate with the developer, I think that the wording is very confusing about the negotiating. I'm confused when I read it. Anyway, I would ask you if you could amend the policy tonight to review in 1 year. I mean, if you're going to vote on it and vote and push it through, just review it in a year from now, so that would help lessen the loss, if there are losses, that you can sort of catch them, because this policy, I think, is going to need some amending. So that's my only question. If you could, or I'm asking, I don't expect an answer, but thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bonkoff.
Okay.
Corporate Officer?
Yeah, is there anyone else who wishes to address council? Please raise your hand now. I do not see any further hands raised, Mayor Beamish.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll proceed with the agenda. We have the next item is item 7, which is committee reports, and 7.1 committee of the whole meeting, October 19. Committee of the whole minutes to be received. Motion to receive. Councillor Crowell, thank you. Councillor Lumley, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. Was it received? Anything, council? I know there's no provision for that. But anything arising out of those? Nothing? Okay. The next is the committee of the whole meeting of November the 2nd. And the first item on that agenda is the recommendation that came out of this afternoon session. And that is regarding the development variance permit for 824 and 840 Kiwanis Way. And the recommendation is that we go to notify the community, the neighbors, on the 2 development variance permits that are proposed for that site, for those properties. Somebody care to make that recommendation? Councillor Crowell, Councillor Ladwig, thank you. Any further discussion of that? Hearing none, all in favor? Thank you, and thank you, Kirsten Defoe, for your work on that project. Look forward to seeing that one come back. The next is the community amenity contribution policy. Now, the copy of that policy is attached in the in your agenda package as well, or to the new agenda. And I believe I'm going to, before we speak to it, that's 7.2.2, go to the Director of Planning. I believe she had something to say.
Thank you, Mayor. So I took the recommendation from the committee and just put it right into this policy so you can see what it looks like. I did it pretty quickly because there was a short turnaround. So under the 4.1.3, the credit part, I didn't update the numbers where it says 4,000. If council wants to go with the 5,000, the rate of 5,000, I just need to update those numbers to 5,000. I just wanted to flag that.
Well, that's in both example 1 and example 2 and example 3.
In all three examples, yeah.
Okay, we can make that amendment now on the fly since it hasn't been adopted. Okay, so thank you. So we'll go then to the recommendations coming out of the committee, and they are that the CIC policy be adopted with the following amendments: combining all multifamily development into one form of development category to include duplex, townhouse, 3-family dwellings, apartments, and townhouses, with an updated CAC target rate of $5,000 under section 4.1.2. Increasing 50% to 75% under section 4.1.4, and adding to the bullets under section 4.1.4 to include where the proposed density includes more than 10 units and where the proposed development is located within the harbor area plan. So these are the recommendations for updating. I just wanted to see, is there a recommendation for adopting the amended plan? Does that come later?
Mayor, that would be at the top. It says that the CIC policy be adopted.
Okay, adopted with the following amendments. Okay,
Yeah.
right. Thank you very much for pointing that out. Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
Council, what are your wishes? Somebody care to make those recommendations? Councillor Lumley, Councillor D'Andrade. Further discussion? You heard the point that was raised in the inquiry section. I had raised that myself a couple of meetings ago, and was felt that the current policy that looks at a 2-year review is fine. The council want to reconsider the review period? Okay. Councillor Ladwig, did you want to revisit it, or did you?
In this particular case, I'd be interested in hearing the community's response after a year, because I do feel that these amendments have been made sort of on the fly. Like, I don't even know what a 75% increase in land value means. Like, I mean, I don't know what that really translates to. So I would be interested in having a review within a year. And if I'd like to make one more comment, but if you want to just settle this issue first, then that's fine.
So what I had written on my agenda earlier today on the committee of the whole, I'll just refer to that. The way I had phrased it was that the CAC target rates will be reviewed after 1 year and then every 2 to 5 years thereafter to ensure alignment with market considerations. Councillor Lumley?
Would it make sense to say 18, or if like 1 year from now is like, I think you're gonna, it's in the middle of the election or at the end of the election, you're gonna have.
Well, yeah, it's true. I guess the only thing about it is that it's also at the beginning of the budget period, so that it makes sense to have it also within the budget period, so that you can plan for the next year. Picking a month after, we say after 1 year, so it's not saying exactly 12 months from now, saying after 1 year. So if we say that after 1 year, so that could put it well into, say, January of 2023 in the context of the budget at that time.
Okay.
Yeah. So Councillor D'Andrade and then Councillor Kroll.
Thank you. I agree. We need to review this in 1 year. After that, we need to be aware of inflation. So sometimes living for too long, not only inflation, but the market value, right? That has been, I mean, in the last year, it has been ballistic. So I think it's important not to let too long. But one thing that worries me a little bit, it's the evaluation. What criteria are we going to use? Are we going to just have a discussion and everybody has an opinion? I think I would like to, within this year, to prepare some criteria, because everything that we evaluate has to have criteria. Opinions, people have different opinions, right? And facts, we can pick and choose. So I think it's important that we understand, what are we evaluating, right? I mean, how are we going to compare that 75 was, I mean, overall, I mean, the reason I'm supporting 75 is because the land value has escalated. And I think, it is important that we look at this. And I know Vancouver look at 75, at least last time when I look at, I don't know every single province, but I think it's just important to understand, what are we evaluating?
I think what you're probably going to get is a report giving you kind of the information about what the CAC contributions have been over that past year period, and relative to what projects. I'm not sure.
Okay, well, that's a good start.
Yeah, in terms of the evaluation, how effective we can do that. I have to leave that up to the Director of Planning to see if there's some measure that could be put in place. Director of Planning, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. I think another piece to evaluate is how much development is coming to Gibsons, and if it's to the point where it's too steep and it's deterring development, that would be a consideration. And if it's not deterring development, then council's getting what you want, and you might be able to keep the rates or increase them. So it really depends on how much development we get in a year, how many rezonings we get, to really assess whether it's working.
And perhaps what feedback you get from developers at the time. So now, and remember, council, you're not limited by these timeframes. You can revisit a policy at any time, and you can amend it at any time that you choose to bring it forward. Policies are not like bylaws that take 3 readings or 4 readings to be done. It is a policy, and you can bring it forward next week and say, let's review the policy. And as long as you have quorum to do that. So, Councilor Diendrad?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize, early on the Committee of the Whole, there was a discussion, the importance of collecting CACs, not only for affordable housing, but for all the amenities. And I mentioned for all the expenses that the town has, and you said, well, we cannot use money for policy. I understand that, for policing or other, well, we chose not to, or maybe we can't. But what I think is, at least we will have a stream of money coming to invest in our own community, in community amenity, which I feel it always ended up behind, because it's not priority, right? So our tennis courts or anything else, our parks. So I think it's important also to have these measurements, right? How much could we collect that we could invest in parks? And, and developers, if they contribute this, they are contributing for their own project, right? Because they're investing in a town that will have a lot of amenities. So I think it's also not thinking on this point of view, but understanding the contributions that we will have, that we can continue building things. Because if you look at it, it's not proportional, right? The town grows, the investment in community amenities, it's not necessarily, look at how long we have not had certain improvements in our parks, etc. So I think it's important to have this view too.
Time will tell. The difference between this policy and what we're doing before is you were able to negotiate specific amenity improvements, plus a specific contribution to affordable housing. Now it's 46% to go to affordable housing, and then others to be spread among a variety of other improvements. So we'll see how that works for us. So did I hear a desire to include that after 1 year and after every 2 to 5 years thereafter? Okay, as an amendment, additional recommendation. Okay, to be added to this point. Okay. So with that additional recommendation, we'll call that bullet 4 on here. Would somebody care to move the recommendations then on page 7.2.2? Councillor Crowell moved. Seconded by Councillor Diandrad, seconded. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Okay. Opposed? I'm still going to stand by opposing it. I think that we're still not doing anything to improve the affordability of housing in the community. And I feel that is the challenge that we face more so than how much money we can get from developers to improve the cost, to increase the cost of housing. So that's my view. Okay, we'll go on to the next report is from Kirsten Defoe, Planner 1, regarding the development variance permit at 313 Headlands. Kirsten, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a brief presentation that I would like to share, so I'll bring that up. Okay, so this application is for a development variance permit to allow overhead wiring for the communications and hydro infrastructure to the garden suite. Purpose of this report is to present neighbor comments and to council and to obtain a decision on the variance request. As presented previously, this image indicates the approximate locations of the garden suite on the property as well as the nearest power poles. So nothing that you haven't seen before. The variance request was amended by council resolution to vary underground wiring requirements of section 11.1.2.1 of the Subdivision and Development Servicing and Stormwater Bylaw number 1175 to allow for new distribution wiring, related hydro infrastructure and communication infrastructure to be installed overhead instead of underground. And this was the amendment on the condition that this wiring be contained within the property boundaries of 313 Headlands Road. So we did notify neighbors based on this amended wording, and no neighbor comments were received for the requested variance in response to the notification letter. As an update on referral comments, they have been received from infrastructure services and building departments, as well as the Gibsons and District Fire Department, volunteer fire department, sorry. Building and fire both state that they are unaffected by the proposal. Comments from infrastructure services reflect the variances initially requested, which they were, the referral went out before council amendment to the wording was put in place. So they did mention that there's no existing overhead wires currently crossing Wells Lane. There is generally poor condition of asphalt on Wells Lane, so cutting to install underground wiring within Wells Lane is acceptable, though it is recommended to attempt to install gas infrastructure at the same time as underground wiring, so you can limit any necessary asphalt patching. The staff assessment comments are presented here are the same that I did present to the committee of the whole on October 19th. There's no change to the conclusions of the assessment following, even following the council amended variance request, as we have certain criteria that are still clearly not being met. Because of that, staff does recommend that council does not approve the variance. And if council does decide this option, the applicant will need to connect to the infrastructure using underground wiring, whether from Wells Lane or Headlands Road, as well as option 2, in which council may approve the requested variance. So I can leave this slide up if you'd like, and I'll turn the floor back over to council for a discussion and decision.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think you can take the slide down. I think that council is aware they have your report. So thank you for that very much for your presentation. And at this time, I will invite anybody who is in the audience who has an opportunity to have an opportunity to discuss the variance and make a presentation to council. Does anybody wish to come forward on that?
Mayor Beamish, I do not see anyone indicating they wish to speak.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go then to council. Council, two options are presented to you, and put that on the table for discussion. Councillor Kroll, I saw your hand.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. Just to make it perfectly clear, and the reason for the variance was, and I think the way it was worded, that if the proponent wishes to go with overhead wiring, that it actually comes off the pole that is on Headlands, not the pole that's on Wells Lane. Thus keeping the wiring over the property. And in the documentation, that wasn't completely clear. There was continued reference to the Wells Lane pole. And I think the significant thing in all of this is currently there's no overhead wiring from, I guess it would be the north side of Wells Lane to the south side of Wells Lane. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that the proponent isn't going to turn around and think they're getting the power off of Wells Lane.
Kirsten, do you have a response to that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Beamish. That was something that was recognized, the notification letter, after it had been amended to include council's amended wording after that resolution. The reference to the pole on Wells Lane was still included. That is recognized. However, the wording that said all the wiring should be located on the property as well was included. So I appreciate there may have been some confusion there. But I'd like to clarify the amended wording was, as Councillor Cole mentioned, which would be from the Headlands connection and all wiring would be within the property. That is correct.
Okay. Do you feel it's necessary for us to clarify that in the resolution that provided on condition that overhead wiring be contained within the property boundaries of Headlands service from Headlands Road? Is that necessary?
I don't know how to answer that question, to be honest. I would reference that the notification letter that did go out to neighbors did specifically reference that all wiring should be contained on the property. And also, given the absence of any neighbor comments, it's sort of tough for me to say either way.
Well, clearly that is our intent, so that if that was interpreted differently, I would expect that to come back to council for clarification. If there was a different interpretation. Somebody wish to make a recommendation? Councillor Ladwig.
Yeah, I recommend option 2, as we discussed previously, but I just want to make it noted that I only do so with the addition of the notice of motion down below in our agenda, just so anybody attending this meeting understands that that's what the notice of motion is intended to address. I don't know if I can speak for all of council, but we felt that perhaps our communication on what the service requirements are for a secondary dwelling such as this or laneway house could be improved upon, and that we recognize that maybe we could do something to amend that, and we're hoping that we can avoid this in the future. And so I support option 2 with the understanding that hopefully we'll improve our communication on our service requirements for these types of dwellings.
Do you move option 2, seconded by Councillor Kroll? Any further discussion, council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of council approving the variance as amended by council? Thank you. That's option 2. Thank you. Thank you. That's option. Thank you, Kirsten, for your presentation. Thank you. Okay, item 8.2 on the agenda is a report from the Chief Administrative Officer and the Director of Finance regarding a proposal for a detached multipurpose room at the Gibsons District Aquatic Facility. Who is going to bring that for us? Is Director of Finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the CAO's absence, I'll provide this report to council. So back in 2004, council is aware that the town received a request from the estate of Merrill Haynes, and these funds were provided in recognition for the need of a multi-purpose room at the Gibsons Aquatic Center. And over the years, the cost of constructing the addition and the existing facility has been a barrier to making this a reality. And so recognizing this, on September 17th of this year, representatives from the town and the RD met to discuss the potential of adding a detached multi-purpose room to the Gibsons pool. Councillors Cole and Ladberg were in attendance on behalf of council. A detached unit was proposed as providing the most flexibility and an alternative potentially that would be less expensive. So the current balance of the Muriel Haynes Fund that we have on balance is just over $206,000. And these funds could be provided as the town's contribution to the project, and which could augment any additional funding required regionally. And so staff has provided a recommendation as a next step for council to send a letter to the regional district requesting that in consultation with the town, they explore the feasibility of adding a detached multi-purpose room to this facility. And that's all I have to say on this part, but we welcome obviously Councillor Cole or Ladwig if they have any additional comments to make on this topic. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to council and Councillor Ladwig. Councillor Kroll, did you have anything to add to the discussion, recommendation? Your Councillor Ladwig?
Just wondering about timeline, just because this has been going on for a while, and I'm worried if we just support the motion as is this, can we put a timeline on it at all?
I think given the given what is happening in terms of the regional district budgeting process they're now involved in, it could fit onto their capital plan as something to do, but it would be one of those things that on the work plan once the budget is approved, because they will have to assign resources to it. So I think that it might be one of saying in 2022 might be hopeful get it into the 2022 budget process for the regional district.
And the budget process for the regional district starts and ends when?
Started on Monday. I spent all day Monday and regional district budgeting. Yeah.
Okay, so we might actually be able to be discussing this and working on it in 2020. Okay.
The regional district has to have their budget finalized by March 31st.
Okay, thank you.
It's not, well, we have till May 15th, so that's the difference too. Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Dindrad.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make a comment. I remember when the first time when we brought that, there was a friend of Mary, or I believe, or someone in the family that made a request to put letter E, which was a middle name, on Muriel E. Haynes, because apparently there's another Muriel Hayes in the community. So I'm just saying this because eventually there will be a plaque dedicated to her. So perhaps the director of finance can examine this, but this was in the back of my mind for a long time. And I think this is an opportunity because I truly believe this will be built.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Kroll, did you have anything to add?
The only thing I was going to add, and it was, I've sort of suggested that it be a separate building that that not necessarily was slaved to the pool. It is town of Gibson's land. I think there is a unique opportunity with the potential of this building to provide an education center to work in conjunction with all the work that the town's done with natural asset infrastructure. It's potentially going to be overlooking the new pond that's going in. There's also an opportunity for it to tie in with the healing forest and a means of swahea. In a brief conversation that you and I had, Mayor Beamish, with the Squamish Nation, there was interest in that conversation that they may be interested in working with the town to help create the facility. So the regional district, if it becomes tied to the regional district in a regional district building, I'm just wondering if we should explore options of, is there need in the community for such a facility that we might seek other areas of funding for?
Thank you, Councillor Kroll. Councillor Lumley?
Yeah, the request was, it would seem to me that like a freestanding building or a separate building, I don't know how that would benefit. What isn't the bequest for, like it says even in the letter there, that it's for dryland training, and you think it would be adjacent to the pool. Like if you're gonna have a kids party, I can only assume that she wanted children to swim and have a separate area for them maybe afterwards or something. I don't know. I mean, we're just gonna give up on the idea that it is somehow connected to the pool. I mean, is that, it's just going to be a separate building?
I think if I could just speak to that point, I think that's what should be up to the design, the engineers. I know that the pool itself is going to be assessed as to its longevity, but we would want this building to be probably outlast the pool. But Councillor Ladwick?
Yeah, just to Councillor Lumley's question. I mean, obviously the design isn't designed yet, but I think the vision that ourselves and the SCRD and Councillor Kroll were thinking about was that there could be a covered walkway out to a separate building that would be adjacent to the pool. There would be a simple little walk out to it. Personally, from my perspective, I really like Councillor Kroll's idea about combining this project to be a bit of an educational center for the natural assets management plan that we're putting in place in the White Tower Pond. Like, I think there's a lot to be learned from what we're doing here, especially now that I'm seeing the way creeks are overflowing with stormwater. I think there's a reason we should be highlighting this. But back to this, excuse me, this fund's purpose. I myself have sat at that pool opening up birthday presents under umbrellas in the rain because there's literally no place for little kids to do this. So a simple little jot under a covered walkway to a building where kids can have their birthday parties would be fantastic. So I like this idea because, like we've discussed already, who knows what the future of the pool is, although I think it's probably got a long time to go still, but you never know. And so at least this way, if the pool does ever get rebuilt one day, you got the separate building that it will still be a standalone and it can be built into whatever design the pool might undergo in the future. So I think it's a great solution.
And I think working in consultation with the town, that's the key with the regional district. And we may have to, if we're going to do it for more than one purpose, add funds to the project, either through grant or through other sources. But we have to honor the Muriel Haynes bequest as well, that it be pool. So Councillor Kroll.
And this would be a question for staff. With the agreement of the trust, would there be any conflict in those funds being incorporated, to use Councillor Ladwig's words, under a larger umbrella?
Director of Finance.
I can speak to the intent of the trust agreement was that the funds be provided to fund capital improvements to the facility. And so, although the background to the bequest, the intent was the multi-purpose room and the dryland lifeguard training, the trust agreement that I'm going off memory here, it speaks to capital improvements to make it somewhat general. So I think it's not to restrict it, but I would feel as long as the intent of the funds were used to further the multi-purpose room and the dryland training, that would be, if it was an expansion, but it also covered that, I think that would be in line with the intended original intent.
I remember speaking to Muriel Haynes about this when we did this at the time and negotiated that agreement with her, and very passionate about the pool. That was her life, and that's where she wanted that money to go into that project. So I don't think that at this point in time that we are at risk of violating that agreement. We have to take a look and be cautious about what we do and look at other funding as well, because that $206,000 is not going to probably do everything we want. And so that, however, we have a recommendation, and council move that, Councillor Ladwig. You prepared to move that? Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Kroll. Thank you. Any further discussion, council? Councillor Ladwig.
Sorry, maybe I moved it too prematurely, but about the timeline, we just hope that it's going to end up in the budget this year. That's just a.
Well, I think we got to get the letter in there quickly, and then that would be rely on our CIO rather to negotiate that with his counterparts there to make sure it gets considered this year. It really is one of, we don't have a number, and so that but the work should be done and funds allocated. We're allocating funds that could in fact be design and engineering and a whole bunch of other things that would come up with a number for what this building would cost. So then the next step maybe is, okay, where do we get that funding? But at least we're saying we want to proceed with that planning. Okay. Okay, call the question. All in favor? Thank you. And thank you, Director of Finance, for your work on that as well. Thank you. Okay, the next is council reports. And it is that time again. This is the beginning of our 4th year. Phew, feels like our 10th year some days, but it's beginning of our 4th year. Time to renew a bunch of things and appointments. And I did send an email out to council asking council if they had any interests or concerns about their current appointments. I don't recall getting anything back from anybody. And so that we have built a list, and I'll go to the corporate officer.
Sorry, we skipped over an item in the agenda.
Oh, did we?
Yes, 8.3.
How did I miss that? Oh, that's right. Yes, I saw it and then I missed it. Yes, apologize. And that's the CAO, the follow-up to finish the strong session held on September 28th, 2021. And what we're looking for here, council, is a date. We keep wanting to follow up on these things, and we have to have that discussion. You'll recall that we had a meeting, a workshop with the consultant. The consultant then subsequently met with staff. And we've never kind of put those two conversations together. And the important part about it is that I think there's information that arising from those conversations that we wanted to both put out to the community and as well as ask the community for some ideas and direction. And until we sit down and have that follow-up conversation, I'm not comfortable assuming that we know what we want to say. So the idea here is that how can we come together on your agendas and have a follow-up session to the Finishing Strong session held on September 28th. And I think we need to do that in a timely way. I was actually hoping that I would be able to use some of the information from that session to talk tonight about, what we have done in the last 4 years, but without having kind of looked at that with you and said, here's an agreed upon summary and statement, then I wasn't comfortable using that information. So, alternate Tuesdays are available to us if council could come together and decide on a day that they would be willing to spend a couple more hours and doing that. It is one of reviewing, but it's also one of planning. Go to Council Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. It was my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we were going to get a bit of a synthesis following the facilitators meeting with staff. And then it was left with us to report to Councillor Lumley, who wasn't at the session. So those components I think need to come into play just to bring Councillor Lumley, in all fairness, into the conversation. But I think, I think it's really important that we, a lot of very valuable information came out of that working group. And, not to share that with Councillor Lumley and not to share it with the community, I think would be unfortunate. So I'm all for if we can get the synthesis. I don't know if the facilitator was doing a report back to us or whether that fell on staff to do. And I dare say staff, looking at the workload they're dealing with. But, I know there was like 15 pages of notes that were, taken on the flip chart. So
and I think that's part of the conversation we want to have together, and with possibly with our senior staff, and with Mark not being here, we need to come up with a date that we can go through and review that. And Rebecca?
Yes, we have made a synthesis, but it requires a little bit of going over to be sure that it's right. So my staff have taken my notes and the pictures of the flip charts and drafted up a set of notes for us that need my review. And then Mark and I were going to review them with the management as well, and then bring it forward to the workshop with council so that it can be taken the next step.
I'm going to suggest, council, looking at my calendar, I have nothing scheduled for the 23rd or the 30th of November. And how does that fit with your time? Mark is away this week and next week. So that would allow him to be back a week. And then the 23rd would be the first Tuesday that is an open day. I know that you guys may have more things happening in your lives than I do, but given that Tuesdays seem to be meeting days, so Councilor Diendrat?
I was just going to suggest that we do this online. We can do quickly, right?
I don't think we can do quickly. I think we have to have that conversation, and it's not fair to Councilor Lumley not to have that conversation.
No, I'm saying schedule online.
Oh, schedule.
By email.
Oh, we can do.
Yeah, I think it's better than try to figure it out now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We can do it, and that's fine. We just need to do it, and so that we'll follow up with council and come up with a date. So I'm going to suggest the 23rd or the 30th, which are Tuesdays. Yeah. So that, and then it gives time for Mark to be back. Councilor Crowell?
If that requires a motion, I'm happy to move it, provided that Mark Brown can, deal with it in the time he's back before the meeting's scheduled.
Yeah, I think given that there's already some kind of a synthesis that Mark and Rebecca could probably work together on that. But Rebecca, how would you feel if you were pushed to the 23rd or the 30th?
That's fine.
23rd, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. No, that's absolutely doable.
Yeah. Everybody check their calendars, and apart from this meeting, get back to Rebecca with the 23rd as the first date. 30th, we are pushing into that Christmas season. We are pushing into other busyness, so that my sense is if we can get it done sooner rather than later. So we also have time to put something out through Elizabeth to the community in terms of the discussion that we had. And it's almost becomes a year-end statement to community as well, which is a good time to put something out. So please get back to Rebecca of your preferences for the 23rd or the 30th. Thank you. Okay, now we'll go to the appointments, 9.1. And was there changes to that list, corporate officer, or is that everything?
The only change was to the Gibsons and District Fire Protection Commission for a second person to be named. You'll see
Councilor Lumley right now is
it's Councilor Crowell right now. If you see Gibsons
and Councilor Lumley.
Oh, is it Councilor Lumley is the second one?
He is the second, yes.
Thank you. I did not know that, so that change needs to be reflected.
Okay, so having looked the list over, is everybody comfortable with staying where you are? for the next 10 months, 11 months. So, okay, seeing that. And then the second part of that resolution, well, the first part is that the mayor's report titled be received, that Councillor Kroll be appointed to serve as deputy mayor from Gibsons from January 1st through December 31st. That the appointments be confirmed. The Mayor Beamish serve as the Gibsons representative to the regional district, and Councillor Kroll for the alternate to the regional district. Those are the recommendations. Anyone choose to move those? Councillor Diendrad, Councillor Ladwig, discussion? All in favor? Thank you. I will say one thing, and that is that the regional district workload is piling up. They have just added another committee there, a community services committee, so that it's one that is going to have the same kind of level of priority as the Planning and Development Committee and the Infrastructure Committee and the Corporate Services Committee. So Councillor Kroll and I have actually looked at some kind of division of labor within all that. So that because it's it's not just the meeting workload, it's the preparation workload as well. I'm also on the well, up to now, we'll see what happens on Thursday. I'm also on the regional hospital board as well, so that some days it can be, it's a very busy time. Some weeks it's a very busy time. Today it was all day Monday. Well, it's going to be Tuesday, except we managed to get it all done on Mondays, which was good. But then we'll be back on Thursday. So it's probably equally much time in the regional district as I need to spend on council business. So it's a significant commitment. So, and I appreciate Councillor Kroll back up on all of that. And it'd be very good when I suggest that, hey, we need to get this good document out to council. You guys get those documents in your in basket too, sort of thing. So that maybe not as consistently as you want them. I don't know how much more you want, but they are all available to you. You can go on the SCRD website. All their agendas are posted, and that's what I work off of. So I'll call the question on that. All in favor? Oh, yeah, we did vote on that, didn't we? Yes. So thank you, and we'll carry on. And you guys are doing a good job in your liaisons. I know that it's difficult, and I consider liaisons to be a very optional thing. I mean, we inform the organizations of your appointment. Councillor Ladwig, your appointment to the library as a liaison is actually to the library board. You're actually on the board there, which is unlike all the other ones. But as long as the organizations know who they can pick up the phone to and talk to as their council representative, that's, to me, is the important thing in this whole process, that they know that and that they do that, so that they have that. And if there's anything we want to transmit to an organization, it can go back through yourselves as opposed to having to kind of go through any other process, which is also great. I appreciate that. So next on the well, we'll finish this list first. Next is the meeting schedule for 2022. Corporate Officer, do you have anything to say about that?
My report is in your package, which simply says that Section 127 of the Community Charter requires that at least once a year we make the schedule available, and that our procedure bylaw requires that it be done no later than January 15th. So a proposed schedule has been attached to that with regard to the Committee of the Whole and council meetings. There's been one change from the first and third Tuesday. It continues as before on that schedule, except for in January. And of course, August when we recess. The reason for the change in January is that it would fall on the 4th, which is only one day after the office has been closed for a week. The office will be closed during the Christmas holiday week of December, which makes it very difficult to get the agenda out in time for you. So we changed the date to the 11th and the 18th for January.
Thank you for that. And council motion to adopt that as presented. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Ludwig, thank you. Good. We now know what we're doing next year, which is good. And then council plans for attendance at conferences and training seminars for 2022. And this is for budget planning. And I think that we can look at that. Traditionally, the major ones have been UBCM and AVICC, but there are a few others that come up during the course of the year. I think that as long as we have those adopted now, if there are things that you're aware of and that things that come up, we can add those in during the budget process. But the UBCM is at Whistler this year. They are anticipating that that it will be in person. So that I have asked Mark to work with staff to secure rooms in Whistler. They are usually secured in advance and then with a cancellation, with the ability to cancel them within 2 months. So it just means that you've got a room, you've got a bed, and if you choose to go, if we don't choose to go, then we can cancel them. AVICC is in Victoria, I understand, this year. So we can also do the same thing, because the alternative is that I don't know if they're going to be Zooming these like they have in the past, but certainly right now, everybody's kind of planning for in-person conferences, hoping. So that's, and then there are other things. We haven't had really a history of attending FCM. And I leave it to council where they wanted to attend the LGA Leadership Forum, which I find helpful. I've attended many of them in the past, and they are interesting, but they are also a 3-day commitment of time. It's almost a training session on those ones. So I find that to be very good for first term when somebody's on council to go. But I think that that may be well sufficient right now that we keep in mind those conferences. We will plan for them in the budget. And then if there are other conferences come up that you see that you want to, you can let Rebecca know so that they can be added to the budget as well when we go through that process. We didn't do that much last year, but there's always something that comes up. So there's no resolution required there, is there, Rebecca?
No, there's no resolution required.
Okay. So I'll go to Councilor Jane Drag. Go ahead.
Just a clarification. Do we need to put our names, or you're assuming that everybody?
We're assuming right now that everybody look at that, and as we go through the budget process, you can take a look at that sort of thing. But right now, I just want to make sure that we all have rooms, because I'm not sharing. Yeah. So other council reports. Does anybody have anything they wish to report on? Councillor Kroll, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I don't know where the time goes, actually. I just wanted to once again thank staff, Daniel Tardif and Tyler Musgrove for coordinating the Persephone move. It was a bit of a nail biter. Fortunately, it was a miserable, rotten morning, so the public attendance was minimal. Both the Coast Reporter and Coast Cable covered the events, and they were very cooperative that, should things have gone wrong, which they potentially could have, that we wouldn't have all been standing there with egg, or as the case may be, Persephone all over our face. It was interesting, the great cooperation between Lonnie's Crane Service and Don Green's Mobile Marine. They moved it into position, they moved it out of position. Just if anyone cares, the Persephone weighs just over 16,000 pounds, soaking wet. Following that, I attended the regional district for the policing and public safety meeting. It was the last meeting of that committee. It's been dissolved. It's going to morph probably into a little more of what we saw today with just the RCMP reporting to council. And, you know, if it could be done in a manner that the RCMP weren't having to do it 3 times, it would be so much the better. The Track Transportation Advisory Committee, it's being incorporated into the new committee that Mayor Beamish referenced earlier under the regional district umbrella. There's a lot of valuable information that comes out of these committees, and what was happening in the past was the committees would meet, all this valuable information would be discussed, and then it never really came to the board. It came in Reader's Digest condensed minutes, but the board never really motioned anything. So a lot of times nothing was resolved out of these committee meetings. So the new format that it morphs into, hopefully it'll be more productive. On the 22nd, I attended the Howe Sound Community Forum, which was the first time they've met since the inception of the biosphere. It was unfortunate. I attended by Zoom, and they were having major audio issues. So the first presentation was lip reading and reading chat, comments being typed in the chat. It just goes to prove how complicated hybrid meetings can be, where you've got people meeting in person, people meeting via Zoom, and it was a good meeting, but it was very challenging. You know, kudos to the group that managed to pull off the biosphere. One of the big issues now is how, moving forward, it will be funded. So they're looking at other UNESCO designations have received large federal amounts, which if they were smart, they put into trust, and they're operating the functioning of the unit from the trust funding. That'll remain to be seen. On the 25th, there was a meeting of the emergency housing group. And out of that, I had another meeting this morning with a rental incentives working group. What can we do to get more doors open in the community for rental? Out of the housing emergency meeting, and it's a huge issue. You know, we have seniors who should be in long-term care who are in the hallways at the hospital. Sadly to say, there have been seniors who have looked at taking their own lives because they cannot find a place to live. I'm finding it really difficult with that sort of thing happening in our community, and it can't be addressed fast enough. So I was really happy to see the Kiwanis project, you know, from what we, you know, that the variants will go out and hopefully they'll get their approval. But, you know, we need to do something to get doors opened in the community for people to have rental accommodation. So I volunteered to see what we can do, working through property managers to incentivize people to rent. You know, it's a huge issue. You know, we're still dealing with the short-term rental bylaw. Whether that's going to impact remains to be seen. So that's about it for me for now. But if anyone has any suggestions for incentivizing rental, please let me know, because I'm going to be working on this other committee.
Thank you, Councillor Kroll. Councillor Ludwig?
Sorry, I'll be really quick. Just want to give my update as fast as I can. So our CAO, Mark Brown, and I have been really busy with the Holland Lands Cultural Corridor Select Committee. So on October 12th, we met with the museum board of directors and staff to have a visioning exercise with them on what their needs are and what they see for the Holland lands. On October 13th, we met with the library staff and board to do the same type of exercise. So we had a big workshop with them. It's very productive. And then on October 20th, we held a Holland Lands Select Committee workshop with Modus Consulting to lead a visioning exercise where they took everybody's input and they're starting to come up with a visual schematic that we're hoping to take out to consultation sometime in November, December for public input as a first draft or first cut of what we're thinking for that project. On October 21st, I attended the Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society board meeting. And I just thought it might be of interest for folks to know that they've teamed up with Workforce Housing. So some folks from that board have joined that board. And just as a point of interest, Colin Stanfield's joined that board, as well as Kim Darwin, just some familiar names that you guys know. So they're definitely very active these days. And Councillor Pearl, just for your interest, they're very interested in the Legion as well, and wondering if there's partnerships that could be established there, and they're interested in having those discussions with you and with them. So I said that they should connect with you on the conversations you've had with them. Anyways, that's it for me.
Thank you. Councillor Kroll?
Sorry, just one quick follow-up. With perspective to the Persephone move, and just in case anyone out in the great ether is listening, the intention at this point is that the boat will be protected, but not restored until such time as we have a place to relocate it. To that end, I had a very brief conversation with the Director of Finance, whether the town can receive additional funding through private individuals, whatever, to go towards Persephone restoration, Persephone housing, and to the same end, the Holland Park, or the Holland Cultural Corner. So, case in point, Gibson Public Market, there are little plaques all over the walls with people that have contributed to that. There's no reason that we couldn't do a similar sort of funding model towards the Cultural Corner and the ultimate housing of the Persephone and its restoration.
Councillor Diendrad?
Thank you. On September 28, I attended the forum in SFU, the one that the Gibsons presented. It called From Gibsons to Glasgow, Low Carbon Resilience Leadership in BC and COP26 Goals. So pretty much this revolves around the concept of low carbon resilience. And since the town has signed on to the race to zero, no, there's a word there, Councillor Crow,
Cities race to zero.
Yeah, zero waste to zero. Yes. It is, I'm really excited because the low carbon resilience, it's pretty much a lens that coordinates adaptation, mitigation in planning, policy implementation, and look at the co-benefits. So this is pretty much integrated planning. And I think Port Moody actually has developed some climate change based on low carbon resilience, and their experience was really excited to see. But it's pretty much, for example, understanding how climate change is affecting all baselines, right? Quantifying that, because we know that there will be impact, but it's putting into data, linking climate action to social, environmental, economic, reconciliation, for example, goals, considering the impact of every action, whether it increases or decreases the low carbon resilience. Align with staff plan. That's really interesting too, right? So not only all departments integrated, right? But each staff plan align with low carbon resilience. Inserting specific language consideration in all communication, including requests for proposals, for example, And this could be even a criteria. This is a criteria that some municipalities are already using to choose which consultant we're going to give a proposal, the one that is more responsive to the low carbon resilience framework. And also developing key indicators, for example, percentage of canopy cover, percentage of invasive species, and so on. So this is really exciting. I'm really hoping that we're going to be seeing this very soon, since the town signed to this challenge. And another very interesting and supportive thing is because not only SFU, they committed themselves to the zero, sorry, how to say that?
Race to zero.
Race to zero, the race to zero to low carbon resilience, but they're also giving assistance to municipalities. So the town of Gibsons and all municipalities are having and will be having assistance from SFU. So I look forward to seeing, because that's something that I have been really talking about, integration for all plans. And now we can see that this integration is a requirement to be part of this low carbon resilience framework. So
Thank
that's
you.
what I have.
Thank you. Councilor Kroll?
Just kudos to our staff for the work they've done. The whole Gibson to Glasgow, the whole presentation was entitled Gibsons to Glasgow. You know, the little seaside community does it again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I've been busy. I've been busy working on the water forum we're going to have tomorrow. We've got over 50 people confirmed to participate. Only one council member. That's fine. Councilor Dindrad is going to be there, and we'll see that. I'm sorry. Did you RSVP? Did you respond? Not checked off on the list as responding. That's okay. We sent you an invitation anyway. So that there's many others who didn't respond who I expect to be there, but only one council member responded, and I appreciate that. So helps us for our planning. So we'll be going through that. I've spent a lot of time. I appreciate Marcy. I've kind of co-opted her to assist me with all this. She's going to actually manage my Zoom tomorrow and manage my PowerPoint presentation and everything else that we'll work at. And it's intended to be a good open discussion. We will have some presentations starting at 10 o'clock from our staff. And you'll see again that presentation from Herman Zeltner. Hoping the SCRD will have something to contribute to that conversation as well. And then there will be an opportunity to have a broader dialogue, as well as breaking off into smaller groups for discussion and come back. So the hope in the end of it is going to be a consensus on the need to protect the watershed, the aquifer area, and then a consensus on how we move forward with that. We have government, provincial government people who have committed time to spend with us, and they will be part. It's not easy to always get everybody together in the same room to have these conversations, and so it's we will look forward to that, and it's a fairly broad base of conversation we're going to have in terms of the people who are going to be present. So you'll certainly see that tomorrow. Councilor Dindrad?
Just a curiosity, did they slot at a specific time, or are they going to be listening to the 3 hours conversation? The people from the ministry.
We have broken it down.
Yeah.
Okay, and say apart from that, I did actually attend a very interesting forest policy meeting today. Started at 2 o'clock. Unfortunately, I had to leave it at 10 to 3. But it was very interesting relative to the new old growth forest strategy and stuff like that. And I think it's going to be repeated tomorrow and Thursday through ABICC. So it's well worth it, I think, if you can participate. Now, tomorrow morning, it'll be busy as well. But I see there was a link came up for ABICC as well on that one. But a very interesting discussion. Going on to with our agenda, we have correspondence, and the first one is the ABICC, and this is kind of the call for first call for resolutions, and also for nomination for ABICC. The deadline for these is January 28th. I would ask that staff bring this forward again at the first meeting in January, so that we can be reminded. But in the meantime, we can think about it, so that it is important that if you have any resolutions you want to put forward, or if you want to nominate anybody for the executive for the year. So, but if we don't have to do anything with it now, but it's on the calendar now, and it's something you should be thinking about, especially in terms of resolutions. Councillor Ladwig.
So how do you want to proceed with resolutions this year? Do you want us to send thoughts to Rebecca, and then maybe the next time we bring this up, it'll be to discuss whatever draft resolution?
You can bring resolutions forward now, or you can wait, and we'll remind you again at first meeting in January. But that's getting tight, as you recognize, in terms of staff's ability to put a resolution together. So do any work you want to now, and put it forward to Rebecca in terms of resolution.
I'm just saying that I think the next time we bring this to council, it should be with draft recommendations.
If there are any, if there are any resolutions that come forward, it will come forward with those resolutions. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. And then, but it's also still an opportunity to put things forward, and they don't take a lot. They don't require a lot of backup. They just want the resolution. So at the time. So
can I share my one resolution thought right now? Like, I don't have the wording, but
yeah, certainly. Yeah.
So I'm contemplating or thinking about the idea of us seeking support from municipalities to give some authority to require building requirements that go above and beyond the BC Building Code to address climate change mitigation. So basically what I'm getting at is it frustrates me that we can't make it mandatory that people put in water catchment systems in their buildings. It's very simple. You can put in a cistern tank, the same as a septic tank. It can cost like $1,500. And in a municipality where we're struggling with water, municipality Sunshine Coast, where we're struggling with water so much, this would be an easy thing for us to require that new houses and new construction have a cistern holding tank, not like a little drum, that put under your, it's just like a septic tank. But what I've been told, if I remember correctly from Director of Planning, is we can't ask for things that go above and beyond the BC Building Code. And so meanwhile, we're an area or municipality that's struggling with water, and we can't ask people to conserve it or to hold or to contain it. And I think we should be asking for some authority to require that.
I think we can ask. You're saying we can't require it. We can ask, we can recommend, but we can't require. At
right.
The present time. That's right.
And I think that the BC has to give us the authority, or I'd like to have that discussion and whether or not that's possible.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's something you see if you get them in early enough too. Staff can research prior UBCM resolutions because often resolutions will have gone forward from other areas to UBCM, and there's a huge ability to research resolutions going back many years that have come to UBCM and what the results were. So good. If you frame that in so many words and send it through to Rebecca, it would be. You're the first off the mark. Yeah. Okay. That'll accompany my recommendation, my nomination to you to the ABICC board. Yeah. Along with all the time you've got in your hands. Okay. So others, and that's exactly what we need to have. Is this some kind of a short précis of what it is you're thinking of, and then with as much of the advanced time as you can to give staff an opportunity to research them. Okay. So motion then to receive that correspondence, 10.1. Is that, Councillor Crowell, Councillor Lumley, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. I don't know that I made that a motion at the beginning of the meeting, so we have to make them individually now. The next one was from Honorable Josie Osborne, Minister of Municipal Affairs, and this is regarding the important role of public libraries. And I believe a copy of this, I did ask to be sent to the library, but I understand they received a copy directly. I think it's part of the CC list on it actually. So that good to see that Minister Osborne following up from UBCM, and good to see that there was another letter came through that will probably be on a future agenda, and that was one that dealt with a response. Oh no, it's a general letter on amendments to legislation, the community charter, the local government act, looking forward. And some of that had to do with development. One of it, I think, was waiving the right requirement for or enabling staff to grant variances for small changes. So that there's something came through there. So they're working on some other things. So Councilor Ladwig, any comments on the library one that no?
No, I just thought it was great that she followed up, and I think she really appreciated having Heather and Janet from the library board, and attend the meeting. And I thought it was great. I think she's very attentive, and I think she's paying attention. So
good. Thank you. So a motion to receive. Councillor Ladwig, I'll take that, and Councillor D'Andrade, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And then the correspondence files for the weeks of October 12, 19, and 25. Motion to receive. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Ladwig, all in favor of receipt. Thank you. Anything arising from those council wants to bring forward? Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. There was a very nice thank you letter from the Sunshine Coast Hospice Society for the grant money that we've given them. Yeah. To that end, I had a brief conversation with the Hospice Society, and I suggested that they actually bring a delegation to council. I don't think a lot of people really appreciate the work they do on the coast. It's not just providing hospice beds, but they also do grief counseling and continued support for people who have lost family members. So I got the information for them for submitting or bringing a delegation to council, and I certainly hope they're able to do that, because they really do they're in desperate need of funding, and like many services in the community, they need help. Also, there was comment in another letter about just an information session that occurred in the community, and why no one from council attended. Quite frankly, I had several conflicting things that day, and I only found out about the public information hearing late in the day of the event. It wasn't terribly well publicized, to my knowledge. So, it is an issue that hasn't come before council yet, or it hasn't even come before the planning committee yet. So, and I think there's probably going to be a lot of time for conversation on the issue, but it wasn't, I don't think it was an issue of, had we had more notice, probably there would have been better council representation.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I look forward to the hospice presentation as well. I think that would be interesting. They've been before council before, and I think it's good to see that. Other items, council? I see Katz is back in the news. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to unfinished business, and there is none, and then we'll go to notice of motion. And I believe there's a change in the wording of the notice of motion. Is that correct, Councilor Ladwig? Okay. Would you like to lead that off and discuss it?
Sure. So would you like me to read out my change in wording first?
Yes, please.
Everyone
Yes, please.
understands the history on this motion.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm trying to get at, or the wording that I'd like to propose, is that the subdivision and development servicing and stormwater bylaw number 1175, along with any relevant quarterly bylaws and policies, be reviewed by staff, that options be provided to council for amendments, such that the completion of what I'm calling a core servicing requirements outline be included as a mandatory component of any new construction requiring a building permit. I see the Director of Infrastructure is lit up, and I don't blame you. What I'm trying to say here is I don't by any means want to see staff spending time developing customized servicing agreements for every house we build. What I'd like to see is a core servicing requirement outline, a one-page sheet. So I'd like staff to go through our bylaw and kind of pull out the core servicing requirements that our bylaws require, have that included in the building permit so people understand that, for example, any new house construction requires underground power. I know it's in our bylaws, and I know we say it, you know, that we must comply with all our bylaws, but it's very vague, and it leaves too much opportunity for error for individuals that are new to construction or, you know, are building a home for the first time. So I just want to see a one-pager that outlines what we require to hook up power, water, sewer, culverts, any of our core things. Have it like a cookie cutter attached to every building permit that goes forward. So it's a little bit of upfront work, but then once it's done, it's done. So.
I'll go to the Director of Infrastructure for initial response.
Certainly, and I whenever something is missed, and regardless of whether or not, well, regardless of whose responsibility it was, we invariably look at, you know, what could we have done better? How could we have avoided it? Because quite honestly, it creates a lot of work for a lot of people. And we work, infrastructure services works closely with planning, fire department, et cetera, to coordinate these, and as well as building. And we've got some really good communication that goes on down there. Regardless, sometimes things get missed. I would suggest that what you are trying to achieve is more of a staff function as opposed to a bylaw, and obviously subject to other input. But at this juncture, what I'm wondering is if you, rather than amending bylaws or what have you, is that you just direct staff to provide a summary sheet for basic servicing requirements for all building permits. What we've done this past year or two is we've got a fairly in-depth workbook, a digital workbook that we all access. And so when a project comes forward, we get a referral, and there's building permit fees, and there's servicing fees, such as how much it costs to bring a water meter in, and development cost charges and latecomer charges and all of that sort of stuff. And then it gathers all that and puts it into a summary sheet. And so that addresses the fees. But of course, when you're talking about gas or hydro or regulations in our bylaws for infrastructure that may not be done by the town, that becomes a little bit more, not more challenging, but what we're talking about is potentially putting another sheet into that master workbook that we have, so that when we have referrals between departments, that gets filled out for each property. And then it just provides a summary sheet that the building inspector can attach to any building permit that's required. Typically with any form, staff tend not to recommend that those forms be attached to a bylaw, because we often find ways that we can improve those, or additional information that could potentially be put on the form. And if it's in part of a bylaw, then we can't amend the form without council going, and doing 3 readings and adoption and so on, just to change a form. And so we, that's what we do kind of on a staff level. So we already are setting up a meeting about this issue and seeing if we can, and the building inspector's already got stickers for overhead wiring now that he all puts on all his plans. But regardless, staff are looking at this to see how we can consolidate some key pieces of information without trying to replicate whole bylaws, etc. And so.
Yep. Councillor Ladwick, we'll go back to you.
Just wanted to say that I think the Director of Infrastructure has said exactly what I'm intending to do. So I know me, I'm not trying to amend the bylaws. I'm asking staff to make sure they've reviewed them, or if they know them off by heart, then great.
Yeah.
But just pull out, like you said, those core pieces of information that are most relevant, put it in a summary sheet, like you said, and make sure that every building permit that goes out for new construction is aware of it. That's all.
Understood.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I say, that's what I would suggest, is that council direct staff, and then off we go.
And that is what it says, along with
that
bylaws and policies be reviewed by staff. It could just be that, and options be provided to council for amendment. Oh, you're right. It is a little bit.
So I'm more than happy to come back and share with you what we've come up with, but you can certainly count on staff to come up with something to address it and trust that it's going to get done. And so if council wants to just direct staff to do that, we will do it.
So just that council directs staff to review our subdivision development servicing bylaw, stormwater bylaw number 1175, and come back to us with the summary sheet.
Or just to direct staff to what you said, and develop a summary sheet to be included with all building permits for that, outline the basic servicing requirements for a building permit, and then you're done.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to bring that back and show it to you if you want, but as I say, you can trust staff that will come up with that and implement that.
Okay, great. And but I would love to see it almost.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll go to Councillor Dindrat first, and then.
Yeah, no, I enjoy the conversation, because that's what I was going to suggest, a type of checklist, right? I mean, every bylaw, not every, but many bylaws that, for example, the tree bylaw is a good example, right? To come up with checklists, things that highlight and help the anyone, right, that has to interpret a bylaw to go to the main point. So I think that's what the conversation is talking about, right? I mean, it's kind of a checklist that we can go, okay, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, I fully support that, because for a lay person, it's very hard unless you go word by word and think. It demands a lot of time. So, and at one point, someone misses who is the contractor, it's the owner is. So now I really appreciate anything to make everybody's life easier. I think it would make staff's life easier too.
Okay, so, corporate officer, do you have the change that was suggested by Councillor Ladwig in her resolution, rather than make amendments, but to review the bylaws with a view to coming up with a information sheet to be provided to homeowners?
I have that, and I also have noted Director of Infrastructure Services suggestion that the motion simply read that staff be directed to review.
Okay, all right, thank you. Somebody second that motion, moved by Councillor Ladwig, Councillor Crowell second. Further discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much. And needless to say, Mr. Newman, we want that yesterday, or as soon thereafter as possible. Thank you. Yeah,
Understood.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now go to inquiries, item 14. So go to inquiries, please.
Anyone has any questions for council regarding any matter that you wish to discuss with them, please raise your hand. No one is indicating that they have any questions.
Okay. No, thank you. We'll then go to a motion to close this meeting. We have a further in-camera meeting to go. So the recommendation is the meeting be closed in accordance with sections 91E of the community charter, and that's the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if council considers that the disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. Somebody move that. Councilor Crowell, thank you. Seconded by Councilor Dindrad, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. And thank you to public who attended and shared this time with us. And thank you for your contributions to that conversation. Yeah, okay. On my screen, it's there. Councilor Dindrad?
Oh, I just want to acknowledge that our youth counselor is with us today, and we did ask for a report. Perhaps she has a report. I know.
Oh, gosh.
Yes.
I didn't, Evie, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there today.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
Thank you for bringing up. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Thank you. Yeah, so today I reached out to a lot of the grade 11s and I told them all about the alternate role, the one that I did last year. And I've had quite a few students that seem really keen. There's a few of them that were really interested, so they're just working on that process. And yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm talking to Miss Bailey, and then yeah.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you for doing that. Councilor Crowell?
I just wanted to thank Evie because I've been calling Sue Bailey and is it Astrid Visor?
Yeah.
Who's head of the Interact Club?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if these people are interested, if we could get their applications in, because the deadline actually was the 22nd of October.
We had information about it on the announcements. We also sent it out to a few of the clubs, but we had nobody reach out, so I just went to people individually, and then they seemed more interested. So
great, thank you for doing that. Really,
I'll tell them to get on.
And Evie, I don't know if it's an incentive for anything, but one thing we are doing is talking with Capital University for credits for the youth counselor position with CapU. So that will be coming forward shortly.
Oh, great. Thank you. Yeah, keep me updated.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? I really apologize. I didn't see you on the screen tonight. So that,
no worries.
Didn't see that you were there. So that please join us in person when you're live here with us. So appreciate that. Okay, and then thank you very much. And thank everybody else for joining and for sharing tonight. Thank you. If you want to wait around for an hour, we'll be back to close the meeting off.